Good evening, Americans, and welcome to the Ed Show tonight from New York. The biggest development in the Trayvon Martin case broke late today. The alarming details shine a new light on the Good Old Boy Network's mishandling of the case and will make the George Zimmerman apologists eat crow. This is the Ed Show. Let's get to work.
Trayvon is your son. A lot of people can relate to our situation, and it breaks their heart just like it breaks mine.
Explosive revelations in the Trayvon Martin case. An investigator wanted George Zimmerman arrested, but he was overruled. The Martin family attorney is here to react. Righties can't stand that the Trayvon Martin nightmare is a national news story, and they are lashing out at MSNBC.
If Trayvon Martin was shot and killed by another black teenager, the media would not be running this on television for hours and hours on end.
Tonight, I'm taking Bill O'Reilly and Bernard Goldberg to school. An explosive day of testimony at the Supreme Court.
Can you create commerce in order to regulate it?
That's not what's going on here, Justice Kennedy, and we're not seeking to defend the law on that basis.
The health care of millions of Americans hangs in the balance. We'll have the latest. And it's a new low in campaign advertising.
That a rogue nation and sworn American enemy has become a nuclear threat.
Republicans threaten an apocalypse and compare the president to a madman. The one and only Jerry Springer is here to react. Good to have you with us tonight, folks. Thanks for watching. Well, the lead investigator in the Trayvon Martin shooting wanted to charge George Zimmerman with manslaughter, but the higher-ups told him not to press charges. This is the biggest piece of information to come out of this case since the day Trayvon Martin was killed. This latest report comes from ABC News. According to multiple sources, investigator Chris Serino was instructed not to press charges against Zimmerman because the state's attorney's office, headed by Norm Wolfinger, determined there wasn't enough evidence to lead to a conviction. Serino filed an affidavit on February 26th, the night Martin was shot and killed by Zimmerman, that stated that he was unconvinced by Zimmerman's version of events. Now, let's grasp that for just a moment. The lead homicide investigator was questioning the shooter's story. He didn't buy it. He recommended a manslaughter charge, but the state attorney, who has since been removed from the case, told the investigator, back off. Want to know why there's outrage? George Zimmerman was not charged, and Trayvon Martin's body sat in a morgue for 3 days before his parents were contacted. Don't you think somebody needs to explain that? If you're still wondering why there's so much outrage surrounding this case, these latest reports really ought to clear all that up for you, folks. The outrage was on display in the nation's capital today. Protesters gathered outside the White House and the Justice Department to demand answers. Some members of Congress are trying to draw attention to the need for federal enforcement of racial profiling and hate crime laws. On the Senate and House floors today, lawmakers highlighted the continued profiling of young black men in America.
Trayvon died because of racial profiling 31 days ago. If you walk into any inner city high school in the African American community, Mr. Speaker, and ask the students, have you ever been racially profiled? Trust me, every one of them will raise their hands.
Democrats on the House Judiciary Committee organized a forum to focus on racial profiling and hate crime issues. Trayvon Martin's parents were invited guests of the forum and spoke about the need to find justice for their son.
Trayvon was our son, but Trayvon is your son.
That's right.
A lot of people can relate to our situation. And it breaks their heart just like it breaks mine.
Thank you to everyone who's supportive of our family, everyone who's helped us stand tall in this matter, everyone who's holding the legacy of Trayvon and making sure that he did not indeed die in vain.
Injustice is the main reason this story continues to receive attention. Where there's smoke, there's fire. The latest report of rejected manslaughter charges shows the wheels of justice were being prevented from turning. How do you think the American people are going to react to that? Now there are new investigators in charge of the case. Let's hope the conclusions of these investigators are not dismissed the way Chris Serino's were. Get your cell phones out. I want to know what you think. Tonight's question, will George Zimmerman ever be charged with the killing of Trayvon Martin? Text A for yes and text B for no to 622-639. You can leave a comment on our blog at ed.msnbc.com. We'll bring you the results later on in the show. Now, this is a big development. An investigator, the lead investigator, wanted to file charges. The state's attorney says no, back off. That state's attorney is no longer on the case investigating. There are new people handling it in the legal arena. I am joined tonight by Daryl Parks, an attorney for the family of Trayvon Martin. Mr. Parks, good to have you with us tonight. This is the culture of this story now is that there's one leak after another. This is a hell of a leak from inside the power structure within the wheels of justice, so to speak, the legal end of it, and of course the police department. What's your reaction to this report about manslaughter charges being dropped from the investigation when the lead investigator wanted to file them?
Well, I think he's exactly right from the beginning. As you look at the evidence in this case, almost everyone comes to the conclusion that this man should have been charged. And now we see, after the covers have been pulled back, that the lead investigator felt exactly the same way.
Does this fuel the emotions of everything that surrounds this case?
Yes, it does. Unfortunately, it makes these parents keep having to go through the pain every day of feeling this. I mean, this type of revelation, which we're just now learning about, where the state attorney's office, for whatever reason, stopped him from filing those charges. He should have been charged that night, and that investigator had it right.
There has been so much public scrutiny surrounding this case. It seems to me, and I'm speculating here, that the lead investigator might have felt that he was being professionally tarnished. Maybe wanting the public to know that he thought manslaughter charges should have been filed, yet they hadn't been filed. It's the perfect scenario for a leak, don't you think?
Yes, it is, and that's why I see it's coming out now.
Well, are you hopeful that the new investigators will use this information to properly prosecute this case?
I'm more than confident. You know, we met with them several times over the last couple of days. I feel very confident about what Prosecutor Corey is going to do. Also feel very confident the investigators that she has on the ground working on this case. They're doing an excellent job. They have promised that they will make sure that everything is looked at in this particular case, and they're doing just that. They're in Sanford right now. They're working, and the family feels very comfortable with what they're doing.
Mr. Parks,
we plan to assist them as much as we can.
Okay, Mr. Parks, you're giving us new information tonight. You're telling us that the family now believes that there will be charges filed, and you, with the legal team, thinking that this is going to be enough to see some charges filed, that you think the wheels of justice are moving?
I think they're moving. I think what I'm saying to you is the investigation is going on. I don't think this one tidbit of information, this certainly brings about a great piece of evidence that they can use to say, hey, the guy who investigated it first feels as if charges should be filed. I think it's a great piece of evidence to push the prosecutor on in that direction.
But you've had indications from the prosecutor that there's probably going to be charges?
No, I'm not saying that.
Okay.
What I'm saying is they're on the ground, they're working very hard, and they're checking all the facts. I believe that once they check all the facts, I believe personally that they will find enough to charge them.
So it's your professional opinion that you think that charges will be filed based on what you've been told?
Yes, sir.
All right.
Well, not based on what I've been told, based on what I've seen in the case.
Okay.
Based on the 911 tapes, based on the witnesses that we've talked to, we are very confident that charges will be filed.
All right. You use the word confidence. This is the city attorney, manager Nelson Bonaparte today talking about confidence. Here it is.
We heard from residents last night concerns that they have regarding the Sanford Police Department. So I am now in the process of talking with the Department of Justice in instituting a mechanism whereby citizens that have concerns or complaints about the Sanford Police Department can have their concerns heard and investigated by an independent agency.
Does this come into play at all with the investigation surrounding the death of Trayvon Martin?
It totally comes into play. I think that some of the steps that we saw from law enforcement in the shoddy investigation that took place, it was so bad that we believe that there was witness tampering among some of the witnesses. Many of the witnesses who we talked to told that they were not encouraged to say certain things. They were discouraged. The whole process was flawed. So we believe that once they start talking with the witnesses, and I think it's important that you know here that in this investigation, yes, you have the state investigation going on, which is the main criminal investigation, but you also have the FBI looking at some of the actions of the department as well.
All right, Daryl Parks, appreciate your time tonight. Thanks so much. Now let's turn to Eugene Robinson, MSNBC political analyst and associate editor and columnist for the Washington Post. Eugene, does this fuel the anger in any way? This revelation that the manslaughter charges changed this case. What do you make of it?
Well, I think it does change the case. I think the important part is that the lead investigator did not find George Zimmerman's account of events credible. And that colors the whole view of the case, because the sequence of events that he relates, that Trayvon Martin started the fight, that he was bashing his head and he was in mortal danger, that account comes into question, including who started the fight, who approached whom, how did the encounter begin, and obviously some of that stuff the lead investigator didn't buy.
Many on the right wing have almost gone so far to come to the aid of Zimmerman, saying that the facts are on his side. Now that this comes out, aren't they now in a position of asking us to believe people who simply were not there, instead of believing the lead investigator who thought that manslaughter charges should have been filed?
Well, that's absolutely right, Ed. I mean, what are the facts? The facts are that an unarmed 17-year-old young man was walking home from a convenience store, was stalked by a guy he didn't know in an SUV, and then on foot, a guy who had a gun, and there was an encounter, and the young man is shot dead by the guy who was stalking him. Those are the facts. So how can you take that set of facts and say they're on Zimmerman's side?
Exactly, and there's so much mudslinging that has taken place. The right wing is speaking from no authority. This investigator is speaking from a professional position of authority that he thought manslaughter charges should have been filed. Shouldn't that erase all the mudslinging that's been going on towards Trayvon Martin?
Well, I think it should. I mean, you know, ideology is not going to decide the outcome of this case. It's going to be the facts. It's going to be the investigation. It's going to be the credibility of those of Zimmerman who participated in the events, or witnesses interviewed and apparently not yet interviewed who might have seen or heard something. So that's what's going to determine the outcome, and it's not going to be blowhards who have a political point to make.
And Eugene Robinson, you have written extensively about the stand your ground laws. Your take on, was the table set for something horrific to take place here?
Absolutely. I think these stand your ground laws, you know, the more I look into them, I realize there was a reason why, the nub of a reason to pass some of these laws. In some states, they were concerned about domestic violence and women who might have no choice but deadly force to stand up against an abusive male in the house. But as written, especially this statute in Florida, is really a license to kill. It's encouragement for any hothead with a gun to shoot first and ask questions later, and it's unnecessary. It's unneeded. The law already takes self-defense into account. There are prosecutors in Florida who have terrible problems with this law, who say that it's essentially a license for gang members to have shootouts in bars and then claim self-defense.
Eugene Robinson, always great work. Great to have you with us tonight. Thank you.